Reverend McCritchie, are you hearing us okay?
Yeah, I am.
That's okay, just checking just before we start. Thanks. Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. Welcome to the Education, Sport and Children's Services Committee, which is being conducted from the Chamber and remotely through the Microsoft Teams platform. Could you please ensure your microphones and cameras are off? And before we begin, I will ask Reverend Ian McCritchie to lead us in prayer. The meeting is now being recorded.
Let's join together in prayer. Let us pray. Lord our God, we come and we seek to give thanks this day for the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ, as we indeed find ourselves in a world that is all too often characterized by trials and tribulations, by heartache, pain, uncertainty, and even fear. We give thanks, O Lord, that in the storms of life there is to be found that peace, that safety, and that security in the Lord Jesus Christ. And Lord, as we gather together as a committee today, we pray that your hand would be upon us, that we would have that shared vision and desire to work together for the good of our young, that you would lead us in our conversations and debates, that indeed we would be found treating one another with dignity and respect, and that all the while we would seek to bring glory and honour to your name. We give thanks for all gathered here today and for all the many gifts that you have given for us to serve in our communities, and we pray that we would seek to do so to the best of our ability and to your glory. Go with us now, we ask, and forgive us for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend McCritchie. You're all well versed in the conduct of the meeting, but just a couple of points to assist the process. If you're a member of the committee attending remotely, please leave your camera on and your microphone off. Officers, please leave both off unless you're called to speak to a report or answer a question. A reminder to those members in the chamber of the queuing system, if you wish to ask a question, please leave on your mic in case you wish to come back on the response. Committee members will be given priority. In regard to declarations of interest, members must leave the chamber or end the call remotely. Finally, a reminder that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the Collier's website following the meeting. Item 4 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, and prior to moving into private, participants other than the relevant officers and members of the committee will be asked to leave the meeting. Before we start, I'll just put some tributes. Olivia MacLeod. I would like to pay tribute to Olivia MacLeod, who passed away on the 1st of January 22. Olivia had been a pupil at Scotland Loch and previously Scotland Rua and attended Sandwick Learning Centre. On behalf of the committee, I would like to extend our heartfelt condolences to Olivia's family and friends and all staff within the school and the department who knew and worked with her. Amy Wallace. I would like to pay tribute to Amy Wallace. Amy passed away on the 26th of January 2022 and had been a pupil at Stornoway Primary and previously Leverhulme Memorial School. On behalf of the committee, I would like to extend our heartfelt condolences to Amy's family and friends and all staff within the school and department who knew and worked with her. Some of our good news stories from the last wee while. The Nicholson Institute, a cheque for £3,000 was presented to Bethesda in January by the school captains. The money was raised in October 2021 at the annual Bethesda Coffee Morning run by the S6 pupils. eSchool has received £1.8 million grant funding for the next financial year, and this has enabled them to secure existing eSchool posts. Several new pilot projects related to enhancing the curriculum and addressing supply cover issues are being piloted in the Western Isles. eSchool staff have been invited to deliver a presentation entitled Removing Barriers at the World Education Summit in March. The video element of the presentation will be shared with members on completion. Both Back and Tongue schools recently completed an inspection process with Education Scotland, and both schools received strong and positive feedback. Full reports will be taken to a future sitting of the committee upon formal publication of the findings. Laxdale School, the new nurture class in Laxdale Primary School opened on the 10th of January 2022, and the class is named The Bay. And I just want to pass on congratulations also to Matthew Wright and Adam McKinnon from Lewis, both of whom are in the Ross County first team. And I believe Matthew might have scored his first senior goal for Ross County the other day against the current league leaders. Okay. I'm not sure. Well done to these boys from Lewis. Okay, thank you very much. So we went to the agenda proper. So minutes of the meeting. Agenda item 1 is minute of meeting 30th November 2021, and that is for approval. Agreed. Okay, thank you. Item 2. Hello. Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, I don't know if that was me actually, but I was going to come in. Can I raise a point actually to find out the current progress with Stoneway Primary? Or does that come up in the performance later on?
Yeah, that's coming up in performance management.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I believe Father Michael, your microphone's on.
Oh.
Thank you. Okay. So declarations of interest. Members are asked to declare any interest they have in any agenda items. It would be helpful if members expressed why they're declaring an interest in the item concerned. Members in the chamber, please do so now by pressing your microphone on or remotely through Teams by raising your hand. No declarations at the moment and nothing online. Okay. If it comes to light, you have declarations later on, you can repeat them at the relevant item and adhere to the protocol as previously indicated. Item 3 is performance management, and this report provides an overview of the Education, Skills and Children's Services Department business plan progress and related performance for the third quarter of 2021-2022. And the Director for Education, Skills and Children's Services is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. William?
Thank you, Chair. Well, there's only been 6 weeks really since this report came to committee previously, so there's little change in a lot of the body of the report, but I can make just a couple of references. As regards the report, you will see in 6.2 that Jack Libby has started work as Head of Service in Children and Families, and we've also appointed a team leader in Youth in Barra, and that team leader will be based in Barra, which strengthens the team across the Western Isles, and that's a hugely positive appointment for us. And at 6.10 as well, the new menus in schools are in place. We know that school meals are always a topic for debate. So we'll see. I think they've been received well up to now, but if you hear anything, we're more than happy to hear from you. And basically, I want to spend a wee bit of time on 6.18 and 6.19 at the moment, because as the previous meeting, we noted that there was a slight fall in terms of performance and CFE levels, and following on from the lockdown, that was little surprise. So in terms of addressing the issues that were raised, we're putting things in place. It'll take a bit of time to recover. So I'll ask Mary Claire maybe to speak about the numeracy part and Donald on the numeracy aspect. And I don't know, Donald, if you want to pick up on the Stornoway Primary performance as well. So I'll ask Mary Claire to come in first. Thanks, Mary Claire.
Thank you. Just to say that schools have settled in very well, and there's been a real focus on tracking and monitoring across all subject areas, particularly in literacy and numeracy, just to identify and address the gaps that have been seen over the time. So we've really had good reports back from schools. You know, pupils are settling well, so very happy with the progress so far from early years all the way through.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pick up on there as well. We've been working significantly with our attainment advisor who works with us from Education Scotland, looking at supporting some further drill down of the data that we received from the 2021 teacher judgment of curriculum for excellence levels at P1, P4 and P7. As I'm sure the committee are aware, the data wasn't gathered for S3 in 2021. And as has been reported previously, that we know that there were significant issues in relation to the assessment of attainment or the teacher judgment of attainment, particularly around literacy at P4 and P7, and equally so in both Gaelic and English curricula. And that's been a particular focus of support that we've been putting in place during the course of this academic year, including and during the current term, the provision of additional teaching time supervised through the executive heads, head teachers to provide support to schools. Also, we're working across the school clusters to support their consistent use of data and information to help identify areas for improvement at each individual school and the work that they need to do there to close that attainment gap that's been assessed. We've been recognising as well that a significant element of this is around confidence of teachers in very difficult and challenging circumstances to make teacher judgments, particularly around elements of writing within literacy as well. Typically, a teacher would have nigh on a year's worth of work to support and collate and evaluate in terms of making their teacher judgments. And in the summer of 2021, that had been significantly affected by the periods of lockdown and online learning. And there's no doubt that that period of online learning and lockdown and post-lockdown period as well, writing was an area that had suffered maybe disproportionately within language. And that's an area that's being supported in terms of what's referenced in the report in one of the bullet points at 618, and the provision of quality assurance and moderation officers to support the confidence in teacher judgment. And this is not at all by any means any criticism of the profession. They were working in exceptionally challenging circumstances, but it was very difficult for teachers to make what they felt were sound and competent judgments when they didn't have the access to the same suite of evidence that they normally would have. And as we've been working through that, and hopefully by the time we approach the summer, having a full academic year in 21-22 without that degree of disruption in the broad general education, that we will see, and we expect to see a recovery of that. We're also working at the moment with schools to collate predicted data for May, June 2022 that will help us analyse the current position in the sort of midpoint and support schools where there may be any predicted gaps prior to the next collation of data in May and June 2022. And I'll take any questions on that. Do you wish me to comment on the Stornoway Primary Development? Yeah. Sorry, that's the project it contained. That's continued to progress. We've had meetings since the new year with colleagues in Assets, Finance and Resources to progress the development of the project. We're currently still working and waiting on feedback from the school and from the Parent Council in terms of the final design specification that they are seeking. But there's universal understanding of the expectation that this will be a multi-sport space with a steel frame and canvas type cover with the maximisation of space and facility based on the budget agreed at previous sitting of the committee. The Parent Council had been due to meet last week, but the sad death of the pupil at the school meant that meeting was cancelled, and it will be rescheduled, and we'll get further feedback from them at that point. But I would reassure members that is progressing, and we can take a further formal update to the next sitting of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Donald. And just one final point from me is really as regards SQA exams. It looks as if there'll be a full diet of exams this year at the moment, although heard on the radio today that COVID in young people was increasing rapidly once again. And just schools have been having their prelim examinations in the last couple of weeks. And I think performance has been varied as one would expect, because in the last 3 diets they haven't really sat any exams, so it's a completely new experience. So hopefully SQA will be in contact with them just to point out that there will be variations. I think we can expect that, but for the next 3 months, that's where we'll put support in through eSchool, etc., to give them as much additionality as we possibly can to support them in terms of their performance, in terms of preparing them for exams. And we're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from members? Councillor Mitchell.
Thanks, Chair. John Mitchell, Harrison, South Lochs. I don't know if this is the appropriate point to bring this up, but I just noticed in 6.8 there was a reference made to the library service, and I don't think the director will be surprised that I would bring this up again. Mr. McDonald, you'll recall that I asked about the long-awaited library report at the last series, even an interim report, and I was under the impression that you made some sort of commitment or promise, maybe I'm mistaken, that the report or interim report would be ready for this series. So I've got 3 questions on that basis. Question 1 is, can you give me any possible reason why, when you consider that the request was made back in January 2021, can you give me what possible reason there is for any further delay in the councillors receiving this report? Question 2, can you guarantee, again, that it will be available for the next series, which is our final series in March. And question 3, slightly flippantly, if you allow me that, if there's a delay in returning library books for a few weeks, there's usually a fine incurred. Given the fact that we have been waiting on this report, or interim report now, if it's March, 15 months, could you maybe direct me as to whom I direct the fine towards? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Mitchell. I think we're quite lenient with fines for late books back, but yeah, William.
Thank you. Yes, I met with the librarian this morning and she is still working on the report. I want to give her as much time as possible. They just came into our department this year. So I apologise for the report not being available today, but I'm not going to put the librarian under excessive pressure at the moment. I think we have to be sympathetic to the librarian, and she's been in a COVID experience as the rest of us, trying to work and keep libraries open as much as possible. So I will take criticism where it's merited. I don't think it is in this case. I have worked with the librarian and will continue to support her, as I will support all other staff, and the report will come. But in terms of literacy and numeracy reports were asked for last time, our staff are working extremely hard and I will defend them to the nth degree. And the report will come and I will work with the Chief Librarian on that report.
Thank you, Director.
With respect, Mr MacDonald, I don't think 13 months is asking for excessive pressures. I have asked for 3 questions. Forget the third one, it was a little bit flippant, but I would like a response to the first one, a reason why after 13 months, irrespective of pressure, why there's no report forthcoming. And secondly, can you give some sort of promise or guarantee, as I concluded you did the last time, that come the March series, we will be in possession of that report?
The libraries have been under our management for the last 5 months, and I can't make apologies for 15 months. I will say that I worked with libraries for the last 5 months, and I will do my very best to get the report to you for the next meeting. And that's as much as I can give at the moment.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr MacLeod, for the update on Stornoway Primary. I wondered if it was possible maybe to have a kind of timeline for when he thinks the project is going to go through the various stages. It's just that these are the questions that we've been asked quite a lot, and it would be quite helpful if there was not anything binding, but some sort of kind of estimate on various stages. So I think it would be quite helpful for people to see. Thanks.
Donald?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Murray. It's not within my gift today to give that timeline, but we have been working with technical services, sorry, not technical services, assets, finance and resources colleagues who are developing a project plan for this. We've got 2 further meetings scheduled in February, and if it's the wish of the committee, we could bring an update report to the March series just to provide some indicative timeline. Again, we would, because we were in consultation with the Parent Council, have given commitment to full involvement with them in the establishment of the design and specification for the project. We have to allow time for that too, which will potentially affect our overall timescales, but we can include some indicative projected timelines based on the framework that AFR colleagues are working to for the project.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for the engagement with the Parent Council on that meeting. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor McLean.
Thanks, Chair. It's again, it's questions on 618 and 619. First of all, we're engaging with the education. I think I've asked this question before. Education Scotland Attainment Advisor. How long have we got this attainment advisor? Is he or she? I think it's a he. Is it Mr. Brown? No. I've got the wrong information. I take it's from Education Scotland, and Education Scotland are supporting this, are paying for this, which is very good. How long do you expect this to go on for? My interpretation of all this is that the teachers, the actual teachers, are the best indicator. They'll tell us, our staff will tell us exactly where the children are. We don't need an outside person to tell us that. Am I correct in that? Our teachers are the best indicator of where our children are in their classrooms. The second thing is this Education Scotland advisor not only in primary, but does he go into secondary? So it's both primary and secondary. So just first two questions on that. I've got another one as well.
I'll let Donald and Mary Claire come in. In terms of moderation of standards, teachers are the best judge, but I think one of the things out traditionally, whether it's island temperament or whatever, that sometimes we're conservative with our estimates. I think in terms of CFE levels across Northern Alliance were quite low for us, and the exit exams were second top, for instance. So it's just really the Education Scotland person in terms of moderating across schools to make sure we've got levels correct. And I think he works basically with us for a couple of days, and he comes up regularly and he visits all the schools, works with staff. Donald links with them a lot more closely than I do, and he can give you more detail.
Yes, thank you, Councillor McLean. Yeah, the attainment advisor is John DeFern, and he is a direct employee of Education Scotland, and he is employed by them and fully funded by them as part of our Scottish Government commitment to provide an attainment advisor to all 32 authorities. So all authorities have that provision available to them on an approximately pro rata basis. As a smaller authority, we have an attainment advisor that works 3 days a week. That 3 day a week period isn't spent entirely in the authority. He works on behalf of the authority on an agenda that's shaped by us and in collaboration with us, whilst working in Glasgow as well, and very importantly provides important connections across the team of attainment advisors to give us connections across the three island authorities, across the Northern Alliance and nationally, and they work on various very broad attainment themes under the supervision of the Senior Regional Advisor in Education Scotland that's based in the Northern Alliance. So he is here to provide support and work with us, and his role is to collaborate and work and visit the schools, as the director has said, to work with every one of our schools to support in a targeted way the information that they need and the upskilling and support that they need for their staff to help raise attainment. They don't come with any hidden agendas. They don't come with any particular brief other than to support us and what we need and want them to do. And we found it to be a very supportive and collaborative approach. We don't know, in terms of one of the elements of Councillor McLean's question, how long that resource will be funded and supported by Scottish Government. As has been spoken about in the Chamber previously, the Muir Review is looking at all the functions of Education Scotland, and within that it'll include roles such as the attainment advisor. So we would have to await the outcome of that report, but anything formal that we're receiving is additional plans for that role to be removed, and we have found them to be a very good support to us.
Mary Claire. Thanks.
Sorry, just to add, I think that he also provides that external scrutiny, which is really helpful too. So not only is he supportive, but he provides that external scrutiny within the schools. And I know that he's built up good relationships with our head teachers. So when they're analysing data, I think it's been a really helpful exercise to have him alongside, and then really maybe asking and prompting further questions to allow just for that further analysis of data. So.
Councillor McLean.
Thanks. That's a very thorough answer. Thank you very much for the three of you. The next question I have is that you've got that external support from Education Scotland. You've obviously got some external support from HMI. Have you got any other input in because maybe my information is wrong, but is there any retirees returning to help out in the department?
William?
In terms of internally or external support?
Yeah, and whatever.
Well, if we've got any specific issues, we've used once or twice somebody to support that school, for instance, just in a short period of time. I don't know if Donald, Mary Claire, is anything I'm forgetting.
So they've been doing quite a lot of focus on quality assurance. So we've been using retired head teachers there too.
Yes, just that I've been getting information to see that retired head teachers are coming back. And then I was saying to myself, well, what incentive is that to teachers, to actually the actual teaching staff within our schools, who are going through from day to day. And if you could second these ones into, not that I'm saying that the retirees aren't very good at their job, let's be honest, but I'm thinking about those ordinary teachers who go from day to day in their job. As a retiree, I'm not looking for any more of that, but I'm looking at when I was a teacher, and I would say to myself, if there's this retirees are returning in there, why on earth does that not give? Can I not get an opportunity? Why not can the ordinary teachers get opportunity for their own development? You know, that's what I'm getting at.
I think we use both. So we're using QAMSOs so across the local authority and giving classroom teachers those opportunities. And I think we've probably just, with the retired the head teachers, they still have a skill set that we can utilise. So I think we've just taken the opportunity when they're there in their locality, who are aware of the standards and expectations, we're probably utilising their services.
I'm not going to say to you what I've heard teachers call e-school, but it's got something to do with retired schools, you know, something, you know, so I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I'm just thinking that that's the impression that we're getting.
Could we get the microphone off so William can come in?
I think one of the challenges we've got, e-school, if I've been perfectly honest, is year-to-year funding. And I think nobody's guaranteed work except for a specific period of time. And say, for instance, again, we've been funded for the next year, 1.8 million across Scotland. So I think it's an opportunity for experienced teachers. Again, we keep using experienced teachers. If there were career opportunities, I think they would definitely bring forward the really good teachers that you're referring to. And probably on a separate issue, we're looking at setting up some training locally for people who are in the classroom who want to be principal teachers, deputy heads. So we're trying to develop a bespoke course for them just to encourage people to come forward so that we can widen the pool in terms of people getting an opportunity.
Thanks for that. Just one last question. It's to do with 10.1. It's to do with the Scottish Government has provided additional funding to support extra teaching staff in schools. Is that coming? Is it there? And have you any idea? Maybe I'm going too far ahead as to where that, because you do say that it will be funding for permanent staffing, which is absolutely excellent. And what we've been hearing from those who have only part-time contracts or temporary contracts. So this is good news. Is how we got it now, or are we getting it?
We got 6 additional staff last year, and then through government intervention, I think another 3 that were due to be sent to Aberdeenshire. They were also taken on, and we wait for the money. And in terms of the detail, we're waiting for the detail from government, but they've said that they will make them permanent. In terms of the contracts, obviously there's been we've been meeting with the LNC to thrash that out, and we hope to have it finalised, but there's some more detail. But that's an incredibly detailed piece of work that, again, could work against teachers. If we make some people permanent, others will lose out. But Donald, again, and Mary Claire have more of the detail in terms of they've met with the EIS in terms of that.
Donald?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's also been additional funding provided to all local authorities for the recruitment of additional permanent staff. And in answer to Councillor McLean's question, part of that has been appointed to. We had sufficient funding for 5 additional teachers. And off the top of my head, I think it was 4 support for learning staff as well, but I would maybe need to be correcting that. Okay. These posts have been advertised. They were advertised pre-Christmas, and several of the posts were filled. Others we intended to recruit to Gaelic medium education, and there weren't sufficient candidates meeting the person specification, and they have just been re-advertised and out for advert at the moment. They were out for advert last Thursday. So these posts are in the process of being filled at the moment. And in terms of the LNCT, temporary contracts agreement, yes, we are in negotiations with the employee side, trade union representatives at the moment, and are at the stage of back and forth dialogue to finalise wording of the agreements in terms of, as the director has said, making sure that we're applying due diligence to make sure that there are no unintended consequences for employees by changes to potential arrangements for the appointment or transition from temporary contract to permanent contract. And these discussions are ongoing, and we hope to conclude in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Donald. Thanks, Colin. Councillor Ray McKenzie.
Ray McKenzie, Stornoway South. I'm not sure from the previous speaker whether he's making a comeback to teaching.
No comebacks here.
And very kindly, he's also put forward the point that I was going to make about the Scottish Government providing additional funding. And I think I've had an answer. I don't know how many teachers were short and how much this will supply, but I think what you said there probably covers it. I assume that, from the heading of it, that it's a key highlight and not an area of concern. The director might not agree, and that the e-school is also a highlight, and that the COVID is an area of concern. But that's thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. Yeah, great. Councillor Ronald Fraser, line.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a slightly different topic, but it does sort of wedge in nicely with regards to the works being done at Stornoway Primary. And as a request, as you may be aware, in recent weeks there has been renewed dialogue from representatives of the UIG Parent Council to the Department in relation to their desire in having an all-weather facility at UIG Primary School. Now, common consensus is that such a facility would bring UIG Primary School into line with other schools to reverse the inequality of provision in having an all-weather facility on site. Therefore, with that, I would request, with the committee's permission, for the Director of Education to prepare a report into the feasibility for an all-weather facility at UIG Primary School at the earliest opportunity, in time for the June series, if possible. And I would seek a seconder to that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Councillor Johnny.
Are you wanting a second?
Oh, I thought you were coming. Yeah.
That's another topic I have.
Okay, sorry.
I'll second that. Nobody else will.
Okay. Is that request for a report?
Well, it is a request
Yeah.
for a report. If the committee agrees to that request.
Okay.
Do the committee agree, or is there an amendment that they do not agree?
Do the committee agree to the request for the report?
Agree.
I'm hearing no abstention. So yeah, so that's agreed. Yeah.
I thank my colleague. Thank you.
Can I just respond to that? Given the all-weather surface that already exists attached to the community centre in UIG, which is also physically attached to UIG Primary School as well, and the other resources. This is something that has come up just in the last couple of weeks by 2 or 3 people who want to do that. And I think we need to take stock of what is currently there and have a discussion with the head teacher in UIG Primary School and also those who are involved with the community centre, where there is a hard surface that has been there for quite some years now, including part of a tennis court.
Yeah, thank you very much, Commissioner. I'm sure all that can be covered in the report that comes back. Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Any councillors, Johnny?
Thank you. I'm not a member of your committee, and thanks for allowing me to ask the question. It's just to remind the director that I asked a question at the previous meeting about preschool transport provision, and you were going to get back to me, but I haven't heard anything since. I know we're meeting after the meeting, so if just to remind you, you can let me know then how we got on. Thank you.
Yeah, happy with that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members? Can't see any lights. Okay. In that case, do members agree to the recommendation at 3.1? Agreed. Thank you.
Also, that there be a report on all-weather facility at UIG.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. Children's Services, the following item will be considered in private at the end of the meeting, so we'll move on to item 5, education provision, the devolved school management scheme. This report informs members of the scope and rationale for the proposed review and update of the devolved school management scheme, DSM. Ian Gordy-Smith is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. Ian Gordy.
Aye. Devolved school management was introduced in 1993 to enhance and improve the management of resources at school level. This DSM guidance was reviewed again in 2006 and updated again in 2012. Scottish Government recently updated the national DSM guidelines in the summer of 2019 to build and improve on the previous version. Local authorities are now required to update their DSM schemes to reflect the new guidance and ensure the principles of the new guidance are included when they update the scheme. The Department will update and review the CNS devolved school management scheme using the principles and the guidance over the next few months. We'll engage project teams, made up of senior officers and head teachers to review the content of the individual elements that make up the scheme and to update them to better meet the principles where this is found to be necessary. The updated devolved school management scheme will be consulted on with stakeholders and the final version presented to this committee and the LNCT for approval sometime later in the year. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members? Councillor McLean.
Just a quick question, Mr. Smith. I noticed there in 5.3, you say that proposals will include the embedding of the executive head teacher into the governance structure for primary schools. Will the term head teacher become obsolete in the Western Isles? In other words, could it become an archaic word, unused word?
I don't really think that's a comment that Ian could make.
Well, what I'm saying is if you're having a devolved school management scheme, a review, and you're embedding executive head teachers into the posts, if what we've agreed with in previous meetings, the head teacher becomes head of school. Therefore, the head teacher becomes a non-essential term or a non-used term. Am I correct?
We're moving to a system with executive head teachers and head of schools, but it could take a while before it has this because there's a number of head teachers, but head teachers will continue in secondary schools.
Yeah, in secondary, yeah, that's fine.
That's
right.
Right.
But in primary, I meant, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Nothing online. No, thank you very much. I look forward to the comprehensive report that's coming back. Thank you. Item 6 is the home education policy, and this report provides information about a new home education policy and seeks approval for its adoption. Joni Coleman is available to speak to the report and answer any questions, and is welcome to your first committee, Joni.
Hi there. So the purpose of the report is to provide information to the council about the new home education policy. So it's an update from the last one was 2017. So it's quite dated, and we are waiting on the Scottish Government's guidance because theirs is from 2007, and it's due to come out in the spring 2022. And I'm hoping to update the policy winter 2022, our local policy, according to that. The policy has been developed to ensure compliance with legislation and to support the families wishing to exercise their right to home educate. The home education requests have increased annually, with a noticeable increase following a national period of home learning. And therefore, it's increasingly important to have the correct terminology and information available to current and prospective home educating families. So the new updates will include information for families, including educational maintenance allowance, information on free sanitary products, procedure for requests, so that's changed as well, and also in terminology. Future updates we hope to have from the Scottish Government is information on flexi schooling, which tends to be a grey area just now. It's hard to kind of pin down the guidance for that, examinations and support for the UNCRC to include that in our local policy as well on the view of the child.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from members on the report?
I'm sorry for my voice to be heard all the time, but I'm not going to give Joni an easy ride today. I think I heard Donald saying that you'll have an easy ride today. But, it's 518. It's previous to that. It's action in the event that there is. That's in the appendix. Sorry. if the Comhairle has reason to believe that an efficient education is not being provided for a home-educated child, they have a duty to intervene. How will the Comhairle know that there is an inefficient education being provided? Will there be some sort of oversee or some oversight of this?
Thank you, Callum. Yeah, Joni.
We ask parents to provide evidence of a suitable and efficient education, and there isn't a kind of legal definition for what that is. But what we do is we ask parents to provide their educational proposals, and we kind of deem to see if they fit with the principles and philosophies as well.
You're in contact with these families?
In contact, yes. Yeah. With an annual.
It's a continual contact with it.
So I'm myself the home education contact, so they will get in touch with myself. But it's an annual review with the families. So each year they have to resubmit educational proposals, but there is no kind of guideline or outline of what they have to provide for us. But if we do need more information, we can ask for it.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Hey, Director.
Joni can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I asked the question yesterday, Jodi. Previously, we would send somebody out to visit the home a couple of years ago just to see that there was an educational space, there were resources, etc. But Joni tells me that's actually being removed, so it'll be through reports if there's involvement with any other agency, etc. So that will have to be out-checked now. So it's just a change in the system in terms of what parents have to provide. And I think the system is more in favour of people who ask being allowed to do so, to provide home education.
Yeah. Joni, you want to come back in on that?
I think the same kind of principles apply for both home educated and normal school pupils in that respect. And they can also, although we did used to offer a visit to the home, they could refuse that. And you could meet somewhere convenient for them, but you could get the same information online as well. So we've reflected that in the policy.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ray McKenzie.
Yes, Ray McKenzie, Stoney said, I was surprised at the numbers that are homeschooled. 15 doesn't sound a lot, but it's more than I thought. And what I didn't catch was, is there some sort of examination? I know there's obviously contact with the parents and so forth, but do they have a sort of annual assessment through an examination or whatever, just to, it might be the parents that are doing the work, you know.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Joni?
So annually, you can have contact throughout the year with the families, but legally it's annual review. So they do have to resubmit their educational plans to myself. And then a report's provided and I'll pass it on to the director for a kind of yes or no.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Roddy?
Roddy Mackay, Pembeckler and North East. It's surprising to me that home education numbers are continuing to rise. Is there a particular reason why people are choosing to educate at home rather than send their children to our schools?
So I think during the period of blended learning, the pupils were still the responsibility of the authority, but when they're home educated, they're the sole responsibility of the family. But I think during the period of blended learning, families kind of find that a positive experience for some. And it's not a huge increase. We do have smaller numbers than all the other local authorities. So we've got 15 just now. That kind of differentiates between one or two. But yeah, there was a noticeable increase.
Okay, happy with that, Roddy? Okay, thanks, members. If there are no further questions, do members agree with the recommendation at 3.1? Agreed. Thank you very much. Thanks for the report. Item 7 is learning states proposals, and this report seeks approval of the strategic prioritisation of future investment by agreeing to the prioritisation of Tongue School for improvement or new development. Donald MacLeod is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. Donald.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just as a little preamble as well to this report and the subsequent 3 on the agenda, which have similar purposes. As a service at the moment, we are working again with Asset Finance and Resources colleagues to undertake some further evaluations of priorities for potential for future investment in our school estate. Obviously, there's been significant investment over a number of years in the school estate, and that continues. And we also need to maintain readiness for potential future income streams, particularly around things as mentioned in the report in terms of the Scottish Government's Learning Estates Investment Programme Phase 3. And as part of that process, we're seeking endorsement today from elected members in terms of the initial prioritisation that we're looking at should these opportunities, should I say, present themselves quickly. Alongside that, we are intending to work with the Northern Alliance to support a wider and fully and more systematic school estates, learning estates strategy development. But we do wish at this stage to identify some significant key development priorities. In terms of that, at item 7, the first of these is Tongue School, which I'm sure is known to many of you in the meeting today. Tongue School was built in the late 1960s, opened in the late 1960s, and serves the catchment from the Newmarket area at the edge of Stornoway through to Coll, in that gap up to Back School. The provision has over the year become very busy. There's been a very significant shift in population in that area, with a large number of private housing developments taking place in land around the Tongue and Newmarket area. And that's led to significant increases in roll and demand in the school, which was significantly more than the original core school building was designed to accommodate. With the school roll now standing at 98, with 27 in nursery as well. And that's another important aspect of expansion in terms of the school offer, where since its original inception, the provision of preschool education in both English and Gaelic have come on site, and that creates additional demand on the physical capacity of the school, but of course also importantly provides service and amenity to the community. The school building now stands with 4 temporary buildings supporting the footprint of the school, and even with that, the condition of these buildings is starting to deteriorate in terms of the first ones that were put there, as well as the core heart of the building itself. The school is challenged in terms of the amenity and space that it has. In terms of internally, it has small classrooms that are very tight for space and are sometimes compromised by their particular layout and design that don't fit the modern delivery of education. The school is also particularly challenged in not having sufficient capacity for dining, and particularly in light of Scottish Government's intentions for expansion of free school meals, some of which has already happened up to primary 5. And if that continues to extend further, the school will be very challenged, both in terms of food preparation areas and dining servery areas. The school has no sufficient internal congregation space and relies very heavily on the community facility, the community hall across the road, which we let on their behalf. The school also has very poor grounds. There are issues around drainage and fall and layout and surface quality around the grounds of the building, as well as that being gradually eroded by the continual expansion of the footprint of the school itself. So this is a very initial preliminary report to identify or seek the consent to identify this as a development priority. There hasn't been work done yet in terms of the right solution for the Tongue community for the school estate. That's something that we would be very keen to commit to engagement with the community on, and have wide consultation in terms of what is the right future for the footprint of Tongue School. But it's to, at this stage, seek the consent of elected members to make this a priority for exploration. And I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, Donald. Any questions from members? Councillor McLean?
Thanks again. I'm sure I'm speaking for the other members of my ward as well, but I welcome this report, and when you look at reports, you would say it's a good report, but it isn't a good report, if you know what I mean, into the school, and really we do have to look at it. And it's good that the department are becoming proactive in their education facilities. That is, and I congratulate you for that, for the director and the staff, that we're actually looking at the buildings we have at present and seeing where we're going from here, rather than just doing piecemeal repairs now and then. We to look at it in a thorough way. And we're going to meet with the director after this meeting regarding Tongue School. But thank you, Donald, for this report.
Thank you, Councillor McLean. Councillor Clyde.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to add to that, and to work on the report also, but the school has become a victim of its own success over the years. It's a growing community and a very popular school community. So it's really important that we look to the future now with a view to try and address some of the present problems, but also looking to the future and seeing what kind of provision we can provide to meet the demand for children being educated in a very popular area.
Good point, Councillor. Thank you. Hey, Convener.
Thank you, Chair. Again, just following on from what the Tongue School and looking at that against the Oog Primary School as well, because again, there are a significant increase in the number of pupils in the primary school there, to the extent that part of the assembly room within the school has been turned into another classroom. Now, the reason they're able to do that is that because the school is physically attached to the community centre, with the key holder being the teacher in the school, that the children can use the community centre. The other issue, which was mentioned by Donald about Tongue as well, is really poor drainage. If you want to see poor drainage, go to school, and I've committed a huge chunk of my ward priority fund to getting that shelter and a proper area at the back of the school that doesn't expose the children. At the moment, the children are exposed to the elements facing southwest. This would help a great deal, and I think it's important that we take these things forward in a way that benefits both the school and the wider community as well. And we need to do that in a reasonable manner, rather than a knee-jerk reaction to something.
Thank you, Convener. Any other question? Oh, John A.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of the committee. Just to agree with my colleagues that the situation in Tongue is getting quite concerning, and I agree with Donald that the building is no longer fit for purpose because there's so many people in it, and there's also they've lost a lot of their play area because we've had to put new buildings onto the site. So I think this is a great report, and we hope to speak to William later on about the situation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, do members agree to the recommendation at 3.1? Great, okay, thank you. So following on, so thanks Donald for the wee preamble there. So item 8 is report seeks in principle approval for the strategic prioritisation of future investment by agreeing to plan improvements to the Nicholson Institute. So Donald, if you give us a speak to the report and answer any questions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This one is further to the same business ultimately as we discussed at item 7. This report also seeks to the support of members to identify the Nicholson Institute for future investment. The Nicholson Institute currently hosts 1,060 pupils and is the only secondary education for the catchment of Lewis and all its associated primary schools. The current building was constructed and opened in August 2012, which means that it is one of our newest schools and was built as part of the Western Isles Schools programme. But in terms of the development of the school over time and the demands that the school now faces, we've had to recognise that it's needed to have a review of the nature of provision for that. There are two major elements to it, which are highlighted in 6.4 and 6.5 in the report. Significantly, the capacity for the school to support and accommodate pupils with additional support needs, particularly those severe and complex needs, is not predicted to be sufficient for the future demand. In 6.4 paragraph B, it highlights they are based on known pupil enrolments in the primary sector over the next number of years, that there's going to be significant increase in growth for additional support needs in the Lewis catchment, rising there from 17 in 2021 to 43 by 2027, which is a significant change in the demographic of the total pupil population in the school. And the school needs to be adapted to meet that significant growing demand. There are several elements that the building is challenged for supporting in that way. One such is that a lot of the learning space and teaching provision, including the pupil support areas, are on the first and second floor. If any pupils using the Nicholson are in wheelchairs and their physical needs indicate that they can't transfer from a wheelchair to an evac chair, they can't evacuate through the stairs and therefore can only access the ground floor of the building, as is the case for some pupils at the moment. And as a result of that, it significantly limits their access to both the physical aspects of the building, but also the wider aspects of curriculum that they should have an entitlement to access. So part of the proposals and the review is about increasing access to ASN. Secondly, it's in the nature of the ASN spaces available to pupils themselves as we make sure that we try and create capacity for this future need, that we need to adapt more space and classrooms in the Nicholson to be suitable for the purpose of supporting pupils with complex needs. Secondly, the nature of delivery of education, which unpredictably, when the Nicholson was being planned in the late 2000s towards 2010 and the construction in 2012, the nature and delivery of education has changed significantly, particularly driven by COVID-19 and the changes to digital learning, remote and online learning, and the growth in technology. And as a result, there's a significantly increased need for young people to have flexible and adaptive learning spaces. And in paragraph 6.5 there's a little demonstration from the work that we've done that modern schools being built as of today have approximately 11% building footprint available for flexible use, seminar spaces, individual learning spaces, and so on. Whereas in the Nicholson at the moment, that's 2.1%. And the vast majority of the building is corridors of traditional classrooms. That place pressure and demand on the school in terms of delivering foundation apprenticeships, connecting in to the provisions that are online, such as eSchool or WestOS. So the school needs to be able to adapt and change to these developing and changing educational needs. We've engaged with Space Strategies, a company who specialise in reviews of school learning estates, and they've helped us identify how we can make these changes within the existing footprint of the school, but that will require some investment and reconfiguration internally, and we are seeking support that this becomes an investment priority in terms of ensuring that we can meet the needs of pupils with additional support needs, but also the wider secondary pupil population in Lewis. Happy to questions on that.
Thank you, Donald. Any questions from members? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I really welcome this report, especially on ASN provision. I know that there's been quite a few challenges in terms of the space. I had been speaking to a few folk about maybe multi-sensory rooms and soft play rooms that I think probably will be considered, and also the outdoor facilities at the back of the school, which is a good facility, probably needs a review. Wondered if that would be open to the community because of the lack of ASN resources outside the school. Play areas are starting to consider ASN users, which is good, but there's not enough. But there's quite a good facility at the back of the Nicholson. I wondered if that would be able to be open for community use as well. I don't know if you've, I noticed there was engagement with a company, but have you thought of engaging with the local NHS who've been working with ASN complex provision as well in terms of play areas? I don't know if you thought of that. But overall, I'm delighted to see this report. This is excellent. Thanks, Gordon.
Donald?
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Murray, part of the review of the Nicholson estate did include the garden at the back of the school that was specifically designed for supporting ASN pupils. There's some difficulty in terms of providing community access in terms of the positioning of that, and particularly in the COVID era. It wasn't the brief of our relationship with space strategies to look at that specifically in terms of wider community use. But as we move forward with these proposals, there would be no issue in scoping that out to see how that could be achieved. One of the significant things that was in the brief for space strategies was improving access indoors, outdoors for pupils with significant additional support needs, particularly wheelchair users, so that there is able to be much better and more natural access and flow to indoor, outdoor spaces, which again, the building hasn't currently been designed to accommodate. As I mentioned, the main spaces for pupil support are on the first floor. The school has undertaken some internal reconfiguration already to try and create a space for severe and complex needs on the first floor, where they took an area that was previously designated for S6 pupils. We're currently working with the school to create a new space for S6 pupils in a different part of the ground floor of the school, and work should be undertaken on that at the end of this academic year. But these are interim arrangements and don't fully meet the current, and certainly won't meet predicted future needs for ASN. So that's why we're working proactively at this stage to make sure we are ready and fully equipped for the school as needs grow.
Yeah, Councillor. Yeah. Convener.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, in terms of the space, I know Donald said that that it would be done within the footprint of the existing school. Presumably that means the walls part. But there is space outside as well that could be used if that were required. And I think it's really important that there is movement with regard to pupils with ASN, and particularly when you look at the other facilities on the ground floor that could be adapted and may use another facility somewhere for the prefects and for the older age groups as well. Is that something that you have in mind?
I should clarify on that, and will do now. Yes, firstly, in terms of the solutions presented by the Space Strategies Company for us in terms of resolving the issues in the brief, there were two proposals presented. One was meeting the specifications through no changes in the physical footprint of the building, and that was developed through significant changes in timetabling, and also recognition that although the school roll at the moment sits at 1,060, in the same projection of our current primary population, that is going to fall over the next 7 years and will come under 1,000 pupils. And as a result of that, that creates flexibility in the capacity across the building to convert more across to ASN, but it wouldn't be in the right places, which is why it needs configuration internally. A separate proposal involves reconfiguration of aspects of the ground floor and an extension of about 3 rooms that come out into one of the semi-internal courtyards. So there is one element of a proposal that would require an extension if it was felt that the wider capacity of the school had to still be maintained. But the main preferred proposal was the reconfiguration and the tighter timetabling of existing spaces. And there were a couple of reconfigurations of rooms there to create alternative fire escapes and bridges across to the multi-levels at the back of the school to create emergency exits and accesses through from other floors. In terms of the use of other spaces, that's aiming to be maximised. There was a very robust review done with Space Strategies across the full timetable of the school and every single space in the building. And we were able to work with them during COVID times for them to come up and physically visit the school and conduct assessments and measurements. And they're confident that that could be achieved within the existing footprint. It was through that work that we were able to identify how we could accommodate an alternative 6th-year area whilst also still maintaining the previous space for additional support needs. And that has incurred already some degree of cost as we reconfigure that, which has been made internally in the department. But the scope of the full works that are required are more significant, which have not yet been costed. We have 2 proposals on the table from the work from Space Strategies, and that would require further consultation in terms of how we would best proceed.
Thank you. Councillor Ray McKenzie.
Thank you, Ray McKenzie, strongly said. Yeah, I welcome this report. I think it's very good. I'm not quite sure about that chair, what exactly that is. Maybe Donald could explain that further, but certainly it seems pity that wheelchair users can't use, in such a modern building, cannot use the top floor, which appears to be suggested at the present time in that building. But I welcome the report to make improvement. Incidentally, how does this fit in with the present contract with the present people that are looking after the building? Will this be just a completely new company, and what would the arrangements be?
Gary, Donald?
Yeah, okay. And firstly, your first question is in relation to evac chairs. When there's an emergency in the building and the fire alarm sounds, or there's a fire, the lifts cannot be used in the building. So currently, in normal circumstances, a wheelchair user can move up and down through the levels with a wheelchair, but we can't allow that to happen, because if there is an emergency and an evacuation is required, the lifts cannot be used. If and as is true of all public buildings, you can actually see evac chairs. There might be one even outside this room. It's a yellow chair that a wheelchair user can be transferred into, that allows them to be safely carried down the stairs by trained staff. But the difficulty we have with a number of our pupils with additional support needs, they have very significant physical needs, particularly spinal health issue needs. That means that they're in very specialist adapted chairs. That means they can't be transferred into an evacuation chair. As a result of that, they would have no way of being evacuated from the first or second floor of the Nicholson. And because of that, it's not safe to allow them to use the first and second floor in case there is an emergency. So there are evacuation chairs available in the Nicholson, as are in all public buildings, but just by nature of the needs of the individual, not every wheelchair user can be transferred. And as a result, that's why we're looking at these proposals in terms of making sure there's equitable and fair access to the aspects of the building that they need to access their curriculum. In terms of the second question, the current facilities management company have been fully participative in the review of space strategies, and it's intended that would be, in terms of agreeing the works, would be undertaken with their participation and agreement. And there's no proposals within this to change anything around the building management contract at the moment. They've been partners in that review process and have contributed to it, and understand that forms part of our agreement with them. And if there are any changes in terms of it, practically in terms of facilities changing or increased footprint, that would have to be negotiated with the current operator.
Okay, thank you, Donald. Thank you for the question, Ray. Any other questions or comments from members? No. Okay. Do members agree with the recommendation at 3.1? Agreed. Thank you. Item 9, this report seeks in principle approval of the strategic prioritisation of future investment by agreeing to the replacement of Scoil Leanaclich. Mary-Claire Ferguson is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. Mary-Claire.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is just a preliminary report, just outlining and looking for your support to approve a strategic prioritisation of Scoil Leanaclich as part of the current programme. Scoil Leanaclich currently serves the communities of Bernery, North Uist, Benbecula, South Uist and Eriskay, and opened in 1988. Currently, the school roll is 268 pupils, and the existing school building also serves community through the library, public swimming pool and the local museum, amongst other facilities. It has a large extensive building footprint and lies very close proximity to the western shoreline. And as you're aware, following the storm in 2005 and the more recent concerns over coastal erosion and sea levels rising, there is growing concerns in the community around the repositioning of the school building. The fabric of the building, both interior and exterior, is in very poor condition and in need of significant investment to be fit for purpose. And a review is required to establish the best solution for a learning provision for Scoil Leanaclich. I would take any questions around that.
Thank you, Mary-Claire. Any questions from members?
Can I make?
Yeah, Mr. Mackenzie. Yeah.
I was on the council at the time when that school was built, and it doesn't seem like very long ago. But it sounds, I mean, I don't know much about the problems or otherwise of the school, but the site certainly seems to be a major problem, you know, with the flooding and what has happened in the past, and maybe this weekend too, I don't know. Yeah, but it doesn't seem like, well, it only seems like yesterday that school was being built.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. I don't know if I should say this, but I was in primary school when it was being developed. So, Councillor Mackay.
Unfortunately, I'd actually left school by the time as well.
Left or asked to leave?
We'll go no further with that. I'm just delighted to see this actually on here. It's something that's badly needed. Scoil Yanlickage, I think, has done very well. It served the public well, but it does need looked at urgently. So I'm really glad to see this come before the council.
Yes, thanks for that, Roddy. Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Marie Claire. So do members agree to recommendation at 3.1? Agreed, thank you. Item 10 is report seeks in principle approval of the strategic prioritisation future investment by agreeing to the reconfiguring of spaces within City Scott School. And Marie Claire Ferguson, again, available to speak to the report and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you again, Chair. So again, another very early preliminary report around seeking your approval to agree reconfiguring the spaces within City Scott School, very similar to the Nicholson. It was built as part of the Western Isles Schools project in 2012, and currently is a 2-18 non-denominational school, and has a roll of 198 pupils. The building currently is maintained by FES to a very high standard. However, the existing building does not provide a fully integrated and inclusive experience for all ASN learners in City Scott School, and particularly over the last few years with rising concerns around young people with mental health anxiety issues, just providing them with, again, more spaces to be made available for them. Just again, a need for additional small spaces and reconfiguration of space within the school to meet the needs of pupils currently within City Scott School. So again, just seeking your approval to again engage with space strategies to explore ways of maximising the capacity within the school building. It's got a large footprint, and there's certainly spaces available to reconfigure space within the building. So thank you again, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. John Mitchell, Harrison South Lochs. First of all, I'd like to concur with my colleague, Councillor Murray. That is a very welcome report. And I mean, I've been retired from City Scott now, goodness knows, a long time, 9 years, I think. And, you know, even then, and more so since, I think I've seen the rise of ASN and mental health issues. And that's probably definitely been exacerbated by the recent COVID situation. And you know, I look at paragraph 2.3, and I would agree totally that the existing building does not provide a fully integrated and inclusive experience for all ASA learners and those with mental health and anxiety issues. Mind you, I would contest that there's probably very few schools in the whole of the Western Isles would be able to satisfy sort of criteria to that extent. And yes, I'm sure there's a need for additional space and or reconfiguration of spaces. My contention, however, is that, you know, I see in paragraph 2.4 the agreement to continue engagement with space strategies. I fully support that. I think that's a good idea, though I would also take on board Councillor Murray's point about engaging with the NHS as well, because they're well versed in exactly that issue. My contention really is that it's agreed to continue engagement with them so that they can explore ways to maximise capacity. Now, that to me is a little bit of a difference from the recommendation that says we should approve the inclusion of the proposed improvements, because I don't see any proposed improvements. I see an exploration by space strategies to look at identifying proposed improvements. And I'm aware of two issues here. One is that every school is very different. and it's not a wise one-size-fit-all situation. And secondly, I would want to just, be quite clear as to what recommendations they come out with, because my understanding is when you look at that, and I think it's already been stated that the thing is fairly investment implicative, so it's going to have a cost factor involved in it, that there's always the yin and the yang in any school, because, I would have to be concerned that you might solve one problem, but actually create others in terms of space allocation. So maybe it's just me, I just feel that there's something missing here between 2.4 and the recommendations. And I just feel that I would be happier if it had said it is recommended that the Comhairle approve that the exploration into reallocation of space and reconfiguration of space took place, rather than what looks a little bit like a carte blanche for action, which says approve the inclusion of the proposed improvements, which I have to say I don't see that yet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Yeah, I think we need to get through the engagement process as discussed throughout the last 3 reports to get to the place where we can take forward ideas. So unless we go through the dialogue with space strategies, etc., we're not really going to get to that point where we can. What we're doing today is improving the inclusion proposed investment for East Scott School, and on the basis that's going to be to improve access for ASN. So the detail will come later on. At the moment, we're just...
Do you see my point, though, Chair? Yeah.
Yeah. The difference, we need to do the engagement first. So obviously the proposed.
Yeah, this seems. I mean, I don't know any of the other members in the chamber agree with me. It just seems
I'm not sure.
We're moving from an engagement to.
Councillor Mitchell. Thank you. Yeah. Marie-Claire, would you like to answer?
Well, just to say that, as I said initially, it's very much a preliminary report. So we are looking to explore space strategy will be one off, and within that we'll be looking at the agencies that use the building as well. So we certainly would be involving NHS with those conversations, and our staff who are already involved with pupils with additional support needs. So, and I guess in my comment on maximising space, in that maximising what we have there already, in a sense, and utilising that space well. It's a very good building, as you know, and there is a great potential within the building. So I do feel it's very early stages, and we will certainly be coming back with a much more detailed report when we go through the engagement process with space strategies.
Thank you very much. And again, in the recommendation, it's investment priority. So it's not, this is the investment we're going to make, it's a priority. Comhairle?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to what we have before us, this is a really ambitious plan for what will be pretty much most of our schools by the time this process has gone through. The question is the sequencing of it and how that's going to be matched. That's going to be a significant part of the process, and I think that's something that needs to be started to look at very soon, given the length of time it took for the Western Isles Schools project to do the same thing. And I do think as well, for Scoilianacley, the Scoilianacley is probably the one school amongst all of these, other than Tongue, that haven't had a significant amount of work done to them in recent years. So I think it's a really ambitious thing. I think we should certainly support it as a council, and we should do everything we can to get similar results to those that came through the Western Isles schools, not 10 years away. So I think it's really important to do that, and I think we should be supporting this as much as we possibly can and carry on pushing, because it will take time to get to the starting block, far less the end product.
Thank you, Convener. Apologies, Councillor Mitchell, I hadn't seen your light was still on. Would you like to come back?
Do you have a final word, Chair? Thank you. No, I'm not. I totally support this report. It's a very, very good report, and I'm not trying to be intentionally confrontational. I'm only seeking perhaps a change in the wording that would also perhaps include engagement with NHS, engagement with the head teacher, engagement with the staff, because they will know better than anybody what the implications of space reallocation would have. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that will be the next step and after we agree this report. So we'll take it on board. I think Councillor Finnegan was going first.
Yeah, Paul Finnegan, Harrison South Locks. I think what the recommendation is actually saying is it's saying that we approve the inclusion of it in the priority, so it becomes an investment priority for this education department. And I think that's really what we're trying. That's what the recommendation is really saying. Yeah, I mean, I take on board what you say, Councillor Mitchell, obviously about we get space strategists and look at what the proposal is, but certainly that we make it one of the priorities to actually take this forward because it's pretty important on all fronts, I think.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Cool.
It's okay. I think it's been overtaken. I mean, this is just getting 4 schools as priorities in a programme. This happens all the time. If you recall, when we started this council, we had Castleby as a priority, which came from the last council, and we decided to honour that. We could have decided as a new council not to do it. And all we're doing here is prioritising the next 4. And I'm very pleased to see that these 4 are on. So I don't see what we should do anything other than approve it. And I'm pleased that members are doing that. Yeah. It's pass on.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor McCormick.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm happy to accept the report as stands. It's obvious that their staff understand exactly what is required in terms of talking to everybody you can possibly talk to about these particular issues so that we get the best result. And as the leader has just said, this is a question of getting these 4 jobs on the priority list. And then we have to go to the Scottish Government and persuade them that they will finance these. And that is going to be the key job at the end of all of this.
Thank you, Councillor McCormick. Yes, the easy bit. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I agree entirely with what the convener has said about this. Has been this is as the leader said, this is the beginning of a process. I'm sure by the end of our discussion in about half an hour's time with Mr. MacDonald, there'll be a back school added to this somewhere along the line.
Thank you very much, Councillor McLean. No further comments or questions. Okay, thank you for that, guys. Thanks, Marie Claire. Do members agree with the recommendation at 3.1? Agreed. Thank you very much. Thanks for those reports. Next up, item 11, Sport and Health Capital Allocation. This report seeks to delegate authority to the Director for Education, Skills and Children's Services to approve a prioritised list of essential improvements to the Sport and Health Service and infrastructure from the existing Sport and Health Capital Allocation. Tony Wade is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. Tony.
Thank you, Chair. The report gives the background to an allocation made by members to sport and health in the 2008 to 2013 capital programme. The history of that's detailed in the body of the report. In the recommendations, it's proposed that the Director approves a prioritised list of improvements across the sport and health estate, which will be particularly important, obviously, as we come out of the pandemic. What this will do is increase and improve the longevity of assets which require urgent works that haven't been able to be prioritised as a result of pressures on repairs and maintenance budgets over recent years. And I've detailed some examples of these in the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Tom. Any questions or comments from members?
Kenny MacLeod, the Chair. Disappointed actually to see this report, but totally understandable. This has been on the cards for a long time, but I think it is more external factors that led to this project not happening. I think the committee at the old school put a huge amount of time and effort into the project, trying to bring it forward, but it wasn't to be. So, and also I know the department officers in the department, one of them's here today, was especially very supportive of trying to get this project off the ground, but disappointing, but totally understandable.
Yeah, I agree with that, Kenny. Thanks. Any other questions or comments from members? No. Okay. In that case, do members agree with the recommendation at 3.1? Agreed. Thank you, Tony.
Chair, just to clarify for members, you're agreeing these recommendations in the interest of the committee. The actual allocation of capital is a matter for policy and resources committees, but the interest of the decision of the committee will be passed to the head of accountancy and Shaker Services when he prepares his capital programme reports.
Yeah, thanks. Apologies for missing that. Thanks, Derek. Item 12 is Castleby School wedding bookings. This report seeks approval for the consumption of alcohol on school premises during spring and summer 22 for 2 events in Castleby School, and authorise the Director for Education, Skills and Children's Services to determine future school lets where the supply or sale of alcohol is planned. Ian Smith is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. Ian.
This is the item I was waiting for.
The school ed policy states that where the sale or supply of alcohol is planned, they must be referred to the Comhairle for approval. We know there are weddings planned in Barra on the 29th of April and the 1st of August 2022, and we know that they wish to use Castleby School. Comhairle permission is required to serve alcohol if these events are to go ahead. And although it's unlikely that restrictions will reduce enough by the end of April to allow the wedding to go ahead as it is currently planned, it may be possible to allow a booking which can be managed within the restrictions enforced at the time and complies with the school's COVID risk assessment. This report seeks delegated powers of approval for the director just in case these weddings can go ahead and they plan to serve alcohol as part of the event, which is usually the case in Barra. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, very optimistic report, should I say, a glass half full. Any questions or comments from members? Councillor Mitchell?
Happy to approve if the councillors are invited as well, by the way.
Can we do that? Yeah, okay. Thank you, members. So, as far as interests are concerned, do we agree to recommend the report? Agreed. Thank you. Solange. Item 13, reports outstanding, and that's for noting. Okay, noted. Thank you. And we'll now move into private to consider item 4.